Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was never a perfect game. The tracks were so recycled, you would think Patagonia designed them. The single player campaign was so short, you could finish it in about the same time it takes to watch a Star Wars movie. And the game only became truly difficult if you had a fast friend sitting next to you on the couch. But none of that mattered. Episode 1 Racer had an incredible sense of speed, boosting across 8 distinct planets while listening to John Williams' legendary soundtrack, and hearing Watto's banter between races was priceless. Even with all its flaws, Episode 1 Racer remains one of my favorite racing games of all time. Welcome to the 33 most iconic moments in Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Want to get a flying start? Every pro knew the trick. Hold the accelerator and press up just as the one disappeared to launch off the line with a perfect turbo start. The sense of speed in Episode 1 Racer was unmatched. Nothing felt faster than boosting past 1000 miles per hour or whatever speed unit they use in the Star Wars universe. Boosting was the perfect risk-reward system. The speed you gain was insane, but there was a catch. Push your engines just a little too hard and you burst into flames. Episode 1 Racer taught us that with great speed came great responsibility. Crashing your pod racer was as inevitable as dying in Dark Souls. Sometimes it started with losing an engine, which made your pod almost impossible to control, and if you were playing in cockpit view, good luck not getting seasick. Every repair was a gamble. Slow down and lose time, or keep racing at full speed and hope for the best. A lot of racing games are afraid of long tracks, but not Episode 1 Racer. A single lap often lasted over 2 minutes, giving you time to get immersed in the world and making every race feel like an actual adventure, instead of just another lap. Going off-road was usually a bad idea, until you accidentally discovered a shortcut and never took the normal route again. The moment the announcer called out, "It's a new lap record," and the yellow text started flashing, you knew you absolutely nailed that lap. Choosing your reward felt like a huge decision. Should the winner take it all, or was there some strategy in betting on third place? In the end, it didn't really matter, because you could always restart the race just before crossing the finish line. Every unlocked racer felt like a major reward. Watching it float into your garage as the victory music played made every win feel worth it. Saving up for the best parts and finally upgrading your pod was one of the most satisfying feelings in the game, and every now and then Watto's junkyard had an absolute bargain. Pit droids were basically the R2-D2s of pod racing. It only took me about 25 years to realize that each one repairs a single upgraded part, so apparently the best strategy was never to upgrade more parts than you had pit droids. Standing on the floating podiums while the announcer declared you the fastest pod racer in the galaxy made every cup victory feel unforgettable. The iconic desert planet with its twin suns. Home to Anakin and Luke Skywalker, Tatooine featured 2 unforgettable tracks. The first eased you into the game before destroying your pod and your confidence at the infamous cave exit. The second was the Bunta Eve Classic, the grand final straight from the movie, complete with Tusken Raiders, tight canyons and the legendary jump. Beat the track and you'd unlock Sebulba before finally watching the credits roll. A dry, dusty spice mining world that felt like one giant construction site. It started with the shortest track in the game, but soon Mongasa opened up into glowing tunnels, bridges over lava, and giant mining machines that claimed almost every player's podracer. Everybody remembers the Battle of Hoth and its freezing landscape, but Episode 1 Racer had its own icy world, Endo-Prime. You race through snowy mountains, frozen tunnels, and wide open plains, staying off the slippery ice that sent your podracer sliding everywhere was the biggest challenge. The final Endo-Prime track even introduced the Ice City, a maze hidden deep in the mountains, before ending with one of the most satisfying jumps in the game. Relive took you both above and beneath the water. The rocky coastline offered breathtaking views for a Nintendo 64 game, while the underwater tunnels were packed with ramps and those infamous sliding doors that somehow managed to crush everyone despite moving in slow motion. And just when you thought you were in the clear, the tide turns near the finish line, put your patience to one final test. Malastare was a dark rocky world filled with toxic green fuel. It felt more like a real racing circuit than any other planet, with sweeping corners, tight hairpin turns, and a huge jump that almost everyone crashed on at least once. Despite being mentioned by Qui-Gon Jinn in The Phantom Menace, Malastare remains one of the most mysterious worlds in Star Wars. UVO 4 was a giant space prison that felt like racing through the Death Star. The zero-gravity tunnels were unlike anything else in the game, and everyone remembers smashing into at least one asteroid in the space section. And as if the asteroids weren't enough, there was also a giant space creature waiting with its mouth wide open. Seriously, was it even possible to control your podracer in there? If one track felt like the dark side of the Force had taken over, it was definitely UVO 4. From tropical beaches and dense jungles to towering cliffs and rivers of lava, Barunda was a planet that felt most like Earth. It even had giant stone statues that looked like something from Easter Island. Racing through the jungle canopy felt incredible, almost like a sightseeing tour through nature. Then the sharp turns reminded you that your podracer actually had brakes. Odibana took racing high above the clouds. Staying on the twisting sky bridges was difficult enough, but one track featured an upper bridge that served as a massive shortcut. Miss it and winning the race was almost impossible. Racing between towering pillars at full speed was a challenge on its own, while mysterious walker-like statues watched over the tracks. And of course, it all ended with some of the most epic jumps in the game. Anakin Skywalker needs no introduction. Although spoiler alert, he becomes Darth Vader. He was the only human racer, the only one who actually spoke a language you could understand, and his blue and white podracer was one of the most iconic in the game. Built by Annie himself, it offered balanced stats and made him the perfect choice for beginners. And of course, no hero is complete without an arch nemesis, Sebulba. Sebulba was the main villain of Episode 1 Racer. His orange podracer packed some serious power, but speed wasn't his only weapon. Fair play wasn't in his vocabulary, and setting his opponents on fire wasn't just a figure of speech. Just remember, he could only do it to racers on his right. You probably don't remember Nevaki, but I certainly do. He looked like an elf and was the only racer with no energy binders connecting his engines. His outstanding traction made it easy to take sharp corners at full speed, making his podracer feel like the four-wheel drive sports car of the Star Wars universe. When I was a kid, Nevaki was always my racer of choice. It's hard not to notice Ben Quadinaros and his unique red 4-engine podracer with its crossing energy binders. Ironically, in the movie, he never even made it off the starting line after one of his engines failed. In the game, you unlock him in the very last bonus race. He's incredibly fast, has the most powerful boost in the game, but is also one of the hardest racers to control. Gargano was impossible to miss with his 4 arms and distinctive green podracer. He finished second to Anakin in the movie and became one of only 3 podracers to get a Lego set alongside Anakin and Sebulba. In the game, he's one of the strongest racers available from the start. Tinto Pagalis was the first racer you unlocked in the game. He wasn't the fastest racer around, but he was definitely one of the strangest. Instead of sitting on top of his podracer like everyone else, he sat inside a giant vertical ring that looked more like a flying donut than a cockpit. Once you'd seen it, it was impossible to forget. While not playable, everyone remembers Watto. The floating blue junk dealer somehow managed to be part-time slave owner and part-time used podracer salesman. Between his unforgettable voice, constant shop banter, and classics like "They come here, they look around, they no buy, why nobody buy?" every trip to his garage was entertaining. While I recorded the rest of the footage on my PS5, I couldn't figure out how to trigger the pre-race trash talk, so here's the Nintendo 64 version running on my analog 3D instead. This was one of those hidden features you only discovered from a friend or a gaming magazine. Hold C while selecting Start Race, and your pilot would exchange insults with the track favorite before the race even began. Lines like "I could run faster than your podracer" were incredibly corny, but who doesn't love a little pre-race trash talk? The frame rate could almost be counted on your fingers, but the race intros still felt epic. Sweeping helicopter-style camera shots, the commentator's crackling microphone, and the anticipation of the starting grid made every race feel like the biggest event in the galaxy. As incredible as the lightsaber duel between Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon Jinn was, the real star was John Williams' Duel of the Fates. It became the signature theme of Episode 1 Racer, making every race feel epic, dramatic, and important. Was this John Williams' greatest soundtrack ever? As epic as Duel of the Fates was, Episode 1 Racer had its cozy side too. After every race, Watto hummed the Cantina Band theme while you looked for the results and prepared for the next race. No matter how many cups you won, the best memories always came from multiplayer. Sitting next to a friend battling for first place created memories that lasted far longer than any trophy. We still talk about the race back in college that I won by just 1/100th of a second. Those were my most iconic moments from Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. What was your favorite moments? Please let me know in the comments. And if you want more iconic moments, check this video out right here.